Joining us now to review some headlines in today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Leila. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning.
Yes, let's start with these daily newspapers. The lead story, which we have discussed extensively with Johnson Chukwu, Nigeria loses 125 billion oil revenue to COVID-19 as price slumps in Q1. Federal government projects GDP to contract by minus 8.9%.
I don't think that's correct. I think it's 8.9%.
Contract 8.9.
Okay. Suspends debt deductions from states. Inflation hits two-year high at 12.34%. World Bank pledges $1.5 billion relief package to states. Oil price hits $36, two-month high as demand recovers. Yes, the state of the economy, the finance minister gave that address yesterday at the meeting of the Council of State meeting.
No, the National
Economic Council meeting. And of course, a subcommittee was set up by that council headed by Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, the governor of Delta State, to see how they can link all the measures being put in place between the federal government and the state government. But some good relief coming for the states. First, it was the suspension of the debt deductions, which the states asked for because they started repaying the loan which the federal government gave to them 2 years ago in January. And 2 months deductions already made, but of course President Buhari gave that approval that there should be a stop on the deductions for now. That is after they have enjoyed 2-year moratorium, and now this $1.5 billion relief coming from the World Bank. I'm sure with this, the states should breathe easy because there's been this fear that the states will be worst hit because even in normal times, they struggle to pay salaries and meet other obligations. Hopefully, when these funds land, they will be put to productive use and not frittered away as we have seen in time past.
Certainly.
Well, I think the reprieve for the state governments is in order. This is in response to the request by the Nigeria Governors Forum that they would like the federal government to suspend payments in terms of their obligations and also to suspend deductions. The reprieve that they have received, I hope it will give them an opportunity to survive better in the face of COVID-19. And we hope that those states that have been threatening that because of reduction in revenue, they will not pay the national minimum wage, will reconsider their positions. And then we also hope that despite the $1.5 billion promised by the IMF, the states themselves will look inwards. Yes. COVID-19 does not mean the suspension of productivity or creativity in real terms. There are possibly other ways in which the states can be productive, either by investing in the digital economy or taking certain other steps. The committee, the 7-man committee that has been set up by the National Economic Council, chaired by your governor.
Yes, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa.
Governor Okowa.
Dr. Senator, if you will.
It's expected to come up with recommendations about how to reopen the economy. Now, we have seen so many committees being set up. We have the Presidential Task Force. We have the Economic Sustainability Committee. We have another committee that is chaired by the Minister of Finance. We just hope that these committees will coordinate, that there will be synergy, and that they will not work at cross purposes. Now, another issue that came up yesterday when the governor of Jigawa spoke on behalf of the state governors was that he was saying that, yes, they are working with the federal government. That it is not true that they are not collaborating with the federal government. Well, we don't want to say that the spokesperson for the governors was not saying the truth. But the truth of the matter is that we don't see enough synergy, between the states and the federal government.
It's like they're working in silos.
Yes, and you know that synergy is very important because Boss Mustafa also referred to it yesterday when he was briefing, that they need more cooperation from the states. The presidential task force is sending a team to Borno State, to Gombe State. A team just returned from Cross River State. Now they're planning to resend a team to Kogi State. Now, that team that is going to Kogi State should be given adequate security because of the way that team was treated the last time. And they were practically chased out of the state just because they wanted to collaborate on the issue of COVID-19.
Well, maybe they should communicate better, communicate more so that they can iron out their differences, as in the case of Kogi. Now, let's move to other stories. The Punch newspaper, federal government asks churches, mosque others to submit guidelines for reopening. Governors to partner presidential task force for reopening of economy. Nigerian purchasing chloroquine in large quantities. PTF cries out. Lagos releases coronavirus home treatment guidelines next week. If we just look at how other newspapers are reporting this same lead story. The Guardian newspaper, federal government insists on restrictions as governors, Muslims disagree. Kanu, Bonu, others direct open prayer. Ilorin Emirate asks Muslims to worship at home. Federal government declares May 25, 26 public holidays. And of course, the Nation newspaper, federal government overrules governor on worship centers opening. PTF warns as Nigerians buy chloroquine drugs. Yes, self-medication. Well, the doctor who appeared here yesterday did not help matters. It was as if
Dr. Obilaki.
Yes, it was as if she was asking Nigerians, this is the way you treat yourself. It's not something that I see very often, doctors giving prescription on air, whether on radio or on television. But let's just look at this disagreement between the federal. I don't want to call it disagreement because the federal government is insisting that these restrictions are in place. No open ground prayers. But for those states that are still in defiance, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, the states that have said that people can worship tomorrow and have congregational prayers include Taraba, Yobe, Borno, Gombe, Kano, Katsina, right? Cross River,
Bauchi,
Delta. Even Delta has said, people can worship. The fear that was expressed by Boss Mustafa, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, is that, look, it could boomerang. You could have a situation whereby there will be very serious spike in the infection rate.
After those worships.
And he reminded the state governors and the Muslim Ummah that the rule is still in place, that gatherings of more than 20 persons will not be allowed.
Yeah.
So, in effect, what is the Presidential Task Force saying? Is the task force going to go send security agents around tomorrow to disperse people who gather in large numbers because they say they are observing a festival that the Sultan of Sokoto, who is the leader of the Muslim congregation in Nigeria, has said it's not compulsory, and that people should stay in neighborhood mosques or in their homes to observe it.
And
it's not a violation of their religious right. It's just that everyone must be careful. And Boss Mustafa also talked about the elderly. And I think it's good that at last the task force is beginning to focus on the elderly. The elderly persons who may go to religious gatherings may be more
susceptible. Yeah.
And the reality is, once you give that kind of leeway and you say that you're going to be open to religious gatherings, at the end of the day, even if there are existing guidelines on how many people, etc., they are not going to be followed. That is just the reality. So we already know that we're in for a kill.
Are these governors defying the government just because President Buhari did not speak to us directly?
No. Because the president in his last address had said every state can look at their own circumstances, their own peculiarities, and take their own decisions. He provided that leeway out of respect for the principle of federalism, I guess, in this instance. But the thing is that, are the governors doing the right thing? They claim that they are under pressure from religious leaders.
And the religious leaders are saying, no,
that's not
in Kano, the religious leaders say, no. the Sultan of Sokoto and the Council of Islamic Affairs, they say no. So maybe the governors have their own political reasons.
Well, I hope we will not regret this, what's going to happen. But if I were to be...
Would there be salad meat tomorrow?
No, well...
On delivery.
You can eat your meat quietly. But what we are saying is that if I were in the presidency, I will ask all the commissioners of police to do the needful and disperse any group that gather beyond 20 people.
Don't go and give extra power to the
No, but the thing is, that is their job. They should.
Even the police must be given proper guidelines.
Yes.
You know, they should not brutalize people.
No, disperse. Just disperse people quietly. Before dawn, take over the mosque, the Eid ground, and ask everybody as they are coming, go back home.
And do the same on Sunday for a lot of churches that are going to open and see this.
Yes.
The Presidential Task Force yesterday apologized to journalists and all essential workers who were humiliated on Tuesday.
Apology accepted.
And restated that, you know, these are exempted essential workers. But we're waiting for the apology of the Inspector General of Police.
Well,
you know we're not going to get
He has reversed himself, but he's actually the person who should apologize.
And no, he won't. So that's the unfortunate thing.
Now, the foreign newspaper Daily Express, 10 million tests to defeat virus. Cutting-edge antibody test checks out. Next week, clinical trials of new on-the-spot swab test is underway. And with that, tests can be done in 20 minutes, and you get the result. And there will be a lot of tests, 10 million in the first instance. With that, the hope is that they will be able to discover those who have had the coronavirus, develop antibodies, which is your major campaign.
The goal. That is the goal right now. Get the antibodies and you're fine.
And you're fine. And the goal is that those who have developed the antibodies will be allowed to
travel, move around, live life again.
Normal life.
Thanks, Mr. Efeni.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
See you on Monday.
Yes.
Yeah.